This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Gladiator 2 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. Rated R. Years after the death of Maximus, Lucius is forced into the Colosseum after his home is conquered by tyrannical twin Roman emperors. With the future of the empire at stake, he must find strength and honor to return the glory of Rome to its people. Gladiator 2, now streaming on ParamountPlus.com.
Welcome to Dear Prudence. I'm your guest, Prudence Kristen Meinzer. I host a couple of other podcasts, By the Book and How to Be Fine among them. Be sure to check those out if you love self-help books, hate self-help books, or want advice on how to be okayish rather than perfect. Or if you like to critically analyze the tabloids, also check out my podcast, The Daily Fail, where we lambast the fake news. Today, we'll be answering questions about how to tell your friends not to bring their baby everywhere, what to do when you're being pressured to connect with a sibling you want nothing to do with, and how to kindly tell your spouse to return a gift they bought for you. Here to help me out today is the great Tuck Woodstock in Slate's Brooklyn studios. Yes, we are here face-to-face, Tuck. Tuck is a journalist, educator, and host of the award-winning podcast Gender Reveal, which I am a huge fan of. He's also the co-founder of Girl Dad Press and co-editor of the anthology Too Trans, Too Furious, which won a Lambda Literary Award last year. Tuck, it is so thrilling to be in studio with you today. Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's such a treat to be in person and not in my literal closet. Like, what a dream. I feel like a professional for the first time, like 10 years in.
Oh, ditto. I am literally in my closet hours every day, which is not what we have all been fighting for.
It's like a really brutal thing for me as like specifically someone focused in LGBTQ media to constantly be like, I have to go back in the closet. And everyone is like making the same joke and it never ends, but that's what it is.
Well, we are here in person today, and we are going to start off, as we do with every guest, with a bit of unsolicited advice from you, something you can share with the listeners.
Yeah. You know, everyone knows this, but I'm going to say it again. You don't have to engage, period. So often I hear people complaining about situations in which they have chosen to become embroiled in something that they did not need to be embroiled in. And then they're complaining about the whole situation. And I'm like, you don't have to be in there. You can step back. This is actually not your business. When I was doing ins and outs for 2025, in minding your business, you know, like just like mind your business.
Yeah.
You don't have to engage with that thing over there. Obviously, that's not true in every situation, but we're doing generalized advice here. And my general advice is, close the laptop, close the chat, talk to somebody else. We just protect your own peace. There's so many things to be anxious about in this moment, and we can pick and choose. We don't have to find new extra things to be upset about. Just don't engage. Someone posts something online that you don't like, don't read it. Stop reading.
Yeah.
Leave.
You don't have to respond. You don't have to follow that person.
Right. You don't have to go to your group chat and paste it and go, isn't this so bad? And then dunk on it for 2 hours. You can just never think about it again. And like that is protecting your peace, is minding your business. Someone saying something wild, that's fine. That's their business. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Let them do their thing. We can just ignore it if we want to.
Exactly.
That is such a great piece of advice. I know I can benefit from that, and I know the listeners can as well. Sometimes it's just, you don't have to. You don't just disengage or don't engage at all.
Yeah, turn it off.
Turn
Whatever.
it off. Turn it off.
Not this, though. Listen to this whole podcast.
Oh, yes. Please do, listeners, because Tuck has so much wisdom to share. We're going to get to that wisdom right after the break.
When you hear a good idea, it's natural to do a double take. That's what you might do when you hear Discover will automatically double the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. Wait, what? Yep, double the cash back is something so good you might do a triple take. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Hey everyone, welcome back. You're listening to Dear Prudence. I'm Kristen Meinzer, and I am here with journalist Tuck Woodstock. Tuck, are you ready to hear our first letter of the day?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get to it. This first letter is titled, Hire a Sitter Already.
My spouse and I have been friends with another couple, April and Jason, since college. April and Jason have a 7-month-old whom they take everywhere with them, and I mean everywhere. Just recently, they brought the baby to our New Year's Eve party without permission, and he proceeded to scream throughout the entire evening. We don't want them to feel as though we're ganging up on them, but our entire social circle is beginning to tire of this. Is there a way to break them of this habit?
So, Tuck, let's talk about friends with kids.
I'm so sorry to this question asker, but it is so wild to hear someone say, what should we do about our friends who have a 7-month-old? They keep bringing the 7-month-old to our events. Yeah, they're 7 months old. What do you think they're going to do? Maybe I don't have enough friends with kids, but to me, it is such a beautiful gift to get to hang out with my friends' kids. And I am making time out of my life to fly different places around the country to get to spend moments with my friends' 7-year-olds. And they are going to scream. That's developmentally appropriate. They're 7 months old. I just don't understand the premise of this question. I guess that there is definitely, I guess without permission implies that you thought that the baby should be like a +1 and you didn't offer a +1. And I guess you could have a conversation about that. But ultimately, I am more feeling like maybe these parents should hang out with people who can appreciate their kid.
But, of course, the letter writer is not the new parent. The letter writer is the one irritated with the new parents. And I just want to say to the letter writer, as somebody who's been in the situation where my friends have had kids and then just ditched me and only hung out with other parents, I envy you. I love when my friends have kids and still bring the kids to the party. A lot of my friends still, do see me after having kids, but some of them just evaporated. Some of them had kids and I haven't seen them since then. And so I just think this is not as bad of a situation as you think it is, letter writer. I think this is something to be grateful for in certain ways. But I also think that there's a way you can maybe navigate certain situations where maybe the party that you speak of, the New Year's party, maybe that wasn't baby appropriate. A bunch of drunk adults being wild. Maybe there's sharp objects everywhere. Maybe people are doing wild things in the bathrooms or whatnot. And maybe they don't want a baby around for that. And maybe that's a case where you could have said up front. And, any parties like this in the future, you can say, hey, just a heads up, this particular party is not exactly a baby-friendly party. And we would love to have you there, but we just don't think it's a safe space for the baby to be there. And then in the meantime, continue to see your friends in situations that maybe are baby-friendly. Maybe change things up a little bit. Like every time you get together with these friends, it doesn't have to be a wild party. It can be, hey, after your baby goes to bed on Thursday night, can I come over with a bottle of wine and we can hang out? Or, hey, next time you bring your baby to the park that's near my neighborhood, why don't I meet you there with a cup of coffee and we can hang out that way? So I don't think this is a situation where you have to lay down the law and say, no more babies ever. But maybe set up situations that are more baby-friendly. And when the situations aren't baby-friendly, make that clear.
Right. I'm interested in what you're looking for from that friendship, because if the question had been, I never get to talk to my friends about their lives anymore or my life anymore because the only thing we can talk about is how to get the baby to stop screaming, I think that would be a different conversation than this baby's annoying to me.
Yes.
I think there's ways that you could sit your friends down and be like, is there a way that we could really engage? I feel like I don't know what's going on with you, or I feel like I haven't been able to share these important moments in my life or anything like that. And that would feel different than this. And the other thing I would offer is that the baby is not going to be 7 months old forever. And so what can you do to maintain these connections over the course of this tricky moment? And then perhaps, in 6 months, a year, 2 years, this won't be an issue anymore. And we can go back to inviting them to my New Year's party and, not worrying that the baby will ruin it.
Yes. And I think that's a good point, too. Even though the letter writer doesn't bring that up, that might be at the heart of what's here is I miss the kind of friendship we had before the baby entered the picture. And I'm sorry, letter writer, that friendship is going to have to be put on hold a little bit right now because your friends are probably incredibly sleep deprived, for one. So they're not going to be the old friend that you're used to. And number two, they just have different priorities now. And their priorities probably don't include partying all night the way they used to or doing certain things the way they used to or having, an all-night sleepover chat fest. They just can't do that because they have this thing they need to keep alive that's relying on them right now. So, if there's that's at the heart of this frustration with the baby, maybe some patience would come in handy, maybe trying to modify things where you have heart-to-hearts that are just going to be a half hour now instead, or they're going to be scheduled at different times than they used to be or in different places. And the friendship doesn't have to die. And it sounds like your friends really are really wanting to keep this friendship alive, actually.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to be grateful for that and try to work around this new phase. It's a new phase, but millions and millions of friends handle it every day, having the friend with kids or the friend without kids. Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next letter. It is titled Nearby.
My mother was the unwanted second wife that my half-siblings took their anger out on, while our father didn't lift a finger. They destroyed or stole her belongings and once jokingly put nuts in a dessert when my mom is highly allergic. She felt like she couldn't leave, especially since she was a stay-at-home mom with me. She was paranoid about them being around me and secretly put up cameras in my room and other places in the house. It was caught on camera when my older half-sister removed the 2 baby gates that separated the upstairs from the down, and then picked me up and put me in my room with the door open. She then came downstairs. I ended up falling down the stairs and getting a concussion. I don't have any memory of this, but I do know that my father accepted only having supervised visits with me growing up. The courts did get involved, but nothing came of it. I never met my older siblings until I was in middle school, and that was at the funeral of our grandmother. My father's family has always minimized what happened. My mother was paranoid. My sister was just hurt and confused over the divorce and me coming along. And she was just a kid. When I asked what would have happened if I had died and why she deliberately did it, I get silence. I'm an adult now, and my father's health is failing. I live closest to him, but have zero desire to communicate with my older half-siblings, especially my half-sister. Let us say that her personal violence didn't stop at me or other children. My aunt is tired of being the go-between over coordinating help for my father and is pushing me to talk to my half-siblings. What do I do here? I love my dad, but I get so angry about how he refused to protect my mom and me at the end.
Oof. First of all, I just want to say you're entitled to that anger. I think we live in a world where we're frequently told, oh, let's not get wound up about stuff. Anger is an ugly emotion. But I think angry is a healthy emotion that sometimes reminds us of our boundaries and reminds us of what we deserve and what we shouldn't have to put up with. And so first, I just want to say I'm really sorry for everything you've been through, and I applaud your anger. Your anger is justified here.
Yeah, my first thought, and this is why I'm sort of categorically bad in advice segments, despite doing them on my own show. My first thought is that if you're in a situation where you're writing a full page of all of the, or some of the pain and trauma that you suffered in childhood and sending it to a podcast for strangers to read, I think that is a sign that this is actually not a podcast issue. We're obviously going to try to offer advice, but this is a professional help level question. I think there's clearly so much that you've been holding onto for your entire life that's still really, really painful. And that makes so much sense to me. And this is not in any way to dismiss anything you're saying. I'm just saying I don't think this is a question that a podcast can solve. I think it is something that is really, really difficult and is really painful. And you need as many resources as possible to like handle that pain moving forward. That said, happy to try to answer the question. I just really don't want to go into it being like, and no problem, we've got you.
Here's the one thing you
one
need to
easy
do.
tip.
Yes. So yes, let's get to some of our advice
Yeah.
that we have. Let's do that. Our letter writer, their dad is currently dying or very, very, very unwell. And in order to navigate care for the dad, the letter writer is reaching to an aunt who is helping to be the liaison with the half-siblings, because our letter writer doesn't want to talk with the half-siblings directly about how to coordinate care, medical appointments, hours of being, brought here or there or whatnot. And I think that sounds like a very frustrating situation for the letter writer's aunt, which I understand the aunt saying, I need to tap out of this. I cannot be the go-between anymore between all of you. And I don't agree with the aunt that the letter writer needs to make peace with the half-siblings. Letter writer, you don't have to. You don't ever have to talk to these half-siblings again. I'm giving you permission right now. Hopefully you know that you don't have to. It sounds like you've deliberately kept your distance from these half-siblings. I'm just going to say your instincts are fine. You don't ever have to talk to them again if you don't want to. People who try to kill you, you don't have to talk to again. You don't have to do that under any circumstances. However, I also think it's important to respect your aunt here. Your aunt doesn't want to have this role anymore. Who else can fill that role? Well, there are people who can do that for you. You can find professionals to do it. Ombudsmans. You can find other members of your friend group or family who might be willing to do that. If you're willing to, you can even do it without saying a word to each other. Maybe there's a shared spreadsheet.
Yes. I also had the Google Sheets thought.
Yes. Thank you, Google
for
Sheets.
sure.
Yes. There are other ways to navigate this where you never have to see their faces, hear their voices, or really interact with them if you don't want to. I also am going to say you don't necessarily even have to be involved with your father's care. If you are this angry at him and feel this betrayed by him, I know you love him. You've said that, but you've also repeatedly made clear that you don't trust him and you have anger toward him. You can also tap out along with your aunt. You don't have to be the one taking care of him when you felt that he never took care of you. It's okay also to step back from that. It's hard to do. There might be guilt involved. There might be a lot of pain involved in that. And that's why I think Tuck's right that having a professional, a therapist, a counselor, somebody to help you navigate these feelings, navigate your boundaries, I think that's very important beyond listening to this podcast. Do those other things. But respect your aunt's wishes to not be the go-between, and also respect your own heart. If your own heart is saying, I just can't do this anymore, you can tap out also. But Tuck, what are your thoughts?
I mean, very similar thoughts to what you were saying. One thing I'll say about finding a third party to mediate this conversation, which I do think is a good idea, I would just recommend making sure that, if possible, it is a true third party, because I had situations in I don't want to say a similar position, but not a terribly, terribly dissimilar situation, where the air quotes third party was actually just a close friend of one of the parties involved. And so then you also have a moderator yelling at everybody, which is like not the correct move. And so if you can find like someone who does have professional experience with this, or not necessarily professional if you can't afford to hire someone, but someone who can be truly neutral in this situation and pass along information without amplifying the tensions that are already there between you, that is a great idea. Again, Google Sheet, if it doesn't turn into, again, weird comments on the side, if you can keep it professional. And then I agree with what you said, that this person does not need to care for their father. That's not something they have an obligation to do. I will say, if you're on the fence about whether you should visit or spend time with your father, you do have your entire life to be mad at him. And so I would try to take advantage of this limited amount of time to get any kind of closure that you can possibly seek. If you want to, anything you want to share, any moment you want to have, I wouldn't want the attention you have with your half siblings to rob you of that experience. But if you're like, I'm actually done, I'm good, I've got what I needed out of this relationship and I cannot offer any more, that's also completely allowed.
Yes. Yes, ditto to all of that. And, you again, you don't have to see your dad again if you don't want to, but if there is something you need to get off of your chest, you can say that to your dad in person. You can write a letter and deliver it to his hospital bed. There are things you can do that, if you feel like later on you would regret it if you didn't get that off your chest while you have the chance, maybe get that off your chest now. But that doesn't mean you have to be a good child to your dad. It doesn't mean you have to take care of your dad or make amends or forgive your dad. You don't have to do any of those things. You really don't have to. Do what's best for you here and maintain those boundaries. And one last thing, if you, letter writer, are struggling with all of this communication, if you can't find a good go-between when it comes to, navigating your father's medical care and so on after your aunt steps back, or even before then, it might be worth your time to look into a board-certified patient advocate. Most states have them. You can seek them out at the medical provider, at the hospital that your dad's being treated with, or at the doctor's office. And again, that's called a board-certified patient advocate. They can help you out quite a bit as far as navigating your father's medical care, what happens after your father passes, and so on. So definitely seek that out. All right. On that note, we are going to take a quick break. You're listening to Dear Prudence. When we're back, we'll be hearing more of your letters. Stay with us.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy. That's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Since you're new to H&R Block, we'll look at your returns from the last 3 years for any money your last guy might have missed for free.
I could get money back from last year?
You could. We'll find any mistakes.
Could have really used that 2 years ago when I dated that mistake for 5 months.
Don't leave money on the table. Switch to H&R Block and get a free Second Look review. Second Look is included at no additional cost with the purchase of tax preparation. Results vary. All tax situations are different. Fees apply if you have us file an amended return.
Welcome back to Dear Prudence. I'm Kristen Meinzer, sitting in for Janae, and I am here with my guest, Tuck Woodstock, to answer your letters. The next one is titled, Conjugal Cheapskate.
I'm a newlywed. My spouse is terrific, and we have a very happy, mostly conflict-free marriage. They are a lot more materialistic than I am. I simply don't care about having designer outfits or the latest tech gadgets. As long as my clothes look nice and fit and my gadgets work, I'm fine to keep them for a few years. I've also never particularly cared for receiving gifts. When Christmas and birthdays roll around, I'm perfectly happy receiving practical things: socks, underwear, blankets, pillows, things I need, not things that would be nice to have but aren't essential necessities. My partner, on the other hand, loves designer clothes and the latest gadgets. They also love to give and receive gifts. I'm not judging them for this, and I'm happy to partake in buying them nice gifts. I'm not going to cheap out if they want something really nice, because I know getting really nice gifts gives them a lot of happiness. But they didn't honor my request not to receive an expensive gift for Christmas. They bought me something that was completely over the top and, to stress this again, much, much too expensive. They totally wasted a very nice present on me, someone who doesn't appreciate the effort whatsoever. It's not a, if I want something, I'll get it myself thing. It's a, this is extremely opulent and it gives me no pleasure thing. In fact, not only does it not give me pleasure, it actively stresses me out because we could have spent this money on many more things that we actually need. I thought of telling my partner the day after Christmas to please take it back, but I just couldn't. It would have been too cruel. They really wanted to go all out for me to show me how much they love me, and that is really so sweet of them. So I just pretended I liked the gift. But really, I would have preferred something practical and, I'm going to stress this again now, not at all expensive. I can't handle this stress every single Christmas and birthday for the rest of my life. It is great that my spouse's love language involves giving and receiving gifts, but mine simply does not. Never has, never will. How do I get this message through to them in a way that doesn't hurt or offend them?
Did I write this letter, Tuck?
Well, I have a question for you before we get into it, which is when you were listening to that letter, what was the opulent gift that you imagined in your mind? Because my brain went to big swan made out of crystal as the most opulent thing I could think of that was also the least useful.
That is so fantastic and funny. I was picturing something robotic and large.
Sure.
Something robotic that does something that is super unnecessary, like maybe it licks your stamps for you or something, where it's just like, here's a giant over-the-top thing. Like, and I'm thinking about my husband here. My husband likes toys. He likes gadgets. He likes opulent things himself. Like, you know, he does have that coffee machine that costs more than all of my shoes combined, you know? And I am not that person. I'm like literally wearing a t-shirt now that I've had for over 20 years sitting here with you, along with an eBay miniskirt. I am not an opulent person in the slightest. So I understand where this letter writer is coming from, but letter writer, I also see something else here that jumps out at me beyond the big question of what is this opulent gift? And the other thing that jumps out at me is you are a newlywed and you used the word pretending. And I just want to say something here. Sometimes when we first are falling in love with people, we want to put on the best versions of ourselves. And what is the best version? In our minds, it frequently is, what does this person want? So this person wants somebody who likes expensive things, so I'm going to pretend to like expensive things. And, you know, that's why they call it the honeymoon phase. You're putting on an act. It's the honeymoon, right? Hopefully you can move past that quickly, because that's not what a marriage should be. A long-term relationship shouldn't be based on I'm trying to be this person that my spouse wants. You should be who you are, and you and your spouse should get to know each other, including your differences, and be honest about those differences, and you love each other despite those or in spite of them, or you come to love those differences as part of the full package, and or to tolerate them. I don't think that you should be pretending anymore. This is not something you have to do. There are delicate, kind, gentle ways to express the fact that you have different points of view, but the pretending doesn't have to continue, and it really absolutely shouldn't.
While I completely understand having that reaction in the moment, I'm sure I would have the same reaction in the moment. It is going to make it more difficult when you eventually have to circle back and say, just kidding, I was pretending, because that's what we're going to have to do to get to the bottom of this. And I want to dial in on a different part of this question, which is that your partner specifically ignored your request for them to not do this, because that, I think, is another issue where it's so cool that your partner wanted to spend this money on you, but if they're not actually listening to you, that is the most troubling part to me. Can you make it, and have you made it really clear that this is not something that you want? And if so, how do you have this conversation with your partner that's not necessarily, you know, I don't like this gift, or I want you to take it back, or I feel weird about it, or I'm not going to use it. The conversation is, I feel like you are not respecting my requests for how I would like to be treated in this partnership. And you know, I'm not going to stop what you want with your gadgets and your designer clothes. That's on you. But what I'm asking you politely to do is not spend that money on me, because it does not make me feel good. What makes me feel good is if you get me sock, you know? And so like, how do we have a conversation that's less about like, how much money did you spend? What was the gift? Was it a good or bad gift? That's sort of beside the point, and focus more on how do we get to a situation where we're both telling the truth to each other and then listening to each other's truths?
Yes. Oh, Tuck, I think that's so wise. That's so wise. It is. It is. And, you know, I think that one thing that's worth making clear here in this conversation with your partner is to say, I just want to make extra clear. Perhaps you thought I was coming off as just being polite, or I don't want to be materialistic. And you thought you were surprising me with something when I was trying to play nice. I wasn't trying to play nice. I was just being honest about how I feel. And when I pretended to like what you gave me, I feel like I was hurting my own position here. I was hurting both of us because I wasn't being honest. And I need to be honest with you now. This is the case. I really don't feel comfortable with these kinds of gifts. I don't enjoy them. They make me anxious. They make me worried about our finances. So I need to be really clear with you. I wasn't just playing nice when I said I don't like these extravagant gifts. I genuinely meant it because, frankly, there are some people out there who say, "Oh, please don't bother. Don't get me anything special." But then if you did give them socks, they would be totally upset.
Right.
We all know people like that, right?
That's a really good point. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. And so if you weren't clear with your husband, like, no, I really would like the socks. The socks
Right.
came.
And I'm sure that
Yeah.
if your husband loves getting opulent gifts, he's imagining, well, no one would truly hate it if they got the big crystal swan, everyone would obviously love it. Like,
Yes.
even if they think they wouldn't, and so having that conversation that's like, we're two different people and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But let's each, stay in our own respective spheres of what we like and don't like and not try to sort of push that on each other.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that you can say all the things that you just said, Tuck, let's stay in our spheres and so on. This isn't me being mad at you or offended. We just feel happiness with different things in life. And this is what I feel happy with, and that's what you feel happy with. And I want to give that to you, and I want you to give that to me. Mm-hmm. And maybe also give some alternatives or examples for in the future beyond socks that, because some people just think, oh, socks are not romantic. Right. So maybe you can give some other ideas. Like, I really would love, a couples massage or an experience, something that would tap into other ways you feel loved, whether that's, to use the love languages, letter writer, you mentioned the love languages, whether that's touch, whether that's quality time, whether that's acts of service. Maybe you're somebody who feels most loved with acts of service, and your husband can get you somebody to do, the housekeeping for 6 months. And maybe that would be a wonderful gift for both of you because that's how you feel most loved. But if you are a love languages person, think about your own love language and give examples of that. That way he's not just left feeling like, I can't buy you socks. Because for somebody who loves gifts like your husband, he's going to feel lousy buying you socks. He doesn't want to buy you socks, even if that's what you want.
Right. Also, if he's a kind of person that wants to spend a bunch of money, and because that is one of the ways that he communicates care, and that's not something that you need, can you redirect that money? Can you be like, can my gift be that, we donate $500 to this mutual aid group who's doing incredible work with people who really need this, and then maybe we both go volunteer for a day, and that's my gift. That's what I want. And then maybe we'll go have a nice lunch, and that'll be part of it too. Like tie in, like, we're going to spend some time together. We're going to have something that we enjoy, but we're also going to ultimately be directing this in a different direction that makes both of you feel a little bit better about it.
Yes. And do your best to communicate well with your partner. You're at the beginning of a marriage. Now is the time to build these skills, to learn how to be honest with each other, to learn how to disagree with each other, but still respect each other's boundaries and desires. And you got this. You can do it. All right. With that, all of our letters are now handled for the week. Can you believe it?
Nobody has any more problems. I'm so happy.
We solved all the world's problems, Tuck. Can you believe it?
I'm thrilled. I'm so glad I could help. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it has been so fun. Can you remind listeners where they can get more of you?
Absolutely. I host the podcast Gender Reveal, which you can learn more about on genderpodcast.com. We even have starter packs for new listeners if you're trying to figure out where to dive in. I also co-founded a press called Girl Dad Press, and our first book is called Too Trans, Too Furious, an extremely serious guide to transgender street racing studies. And so if that sounds like something that you or some other person in your life might be interested in, you can find that, in book places where books are.
Yeah, go to all the book places, get that book.
And if they're not there, demand it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tuck. And listeners, you can hear more of me on Buy the Book, How to Be Fine, The Daily Fail. You can find out about those podcasts at KristenMeinzer.com. Listeners, do you need help getting along with your partners, relatives, coworkers, and people in general? Write to us at slate.com/Prudie. That's slate.com/PRUDIE. The Dear Prudence column publishes every Thursday. Dear Prudence was produced this week by Maura Currie and Vic Whitley-Berry with editorial help from Paola De Verona. Daisy Rosario is senior supervising producer, and I'm your guest, Prudence Kristen Meinzer. That's all for this episode, but join us on today's episode of Prudie Plus, where Tuck and I answer a question from a concerned and protective daughter, potentially telling their mom to end her marriage. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of your show page, or visit slate.com/Prudie Plus to get access wherever you listen. The episode is available for you to listen to right now. We'll see you over there.
Hi, it's Carvel from Slate's How To podcast. Are you ready for a fresh start in 2025? To celebrate the new year, Slate is offering an extended free trial of Slate Plus exclusively on Apple Podcasts. As a Slate Plus member, you'll get ad-free listening on every Slate show, solve life's toughest problems on How To, get advice you actually want to follow on Dear Prudence, keep your pulse on the zeitgeist with Culture Gabfest, and navigate the big questions of life with Death, Sex, and Money, all uninterrupted. Plus, starting this month, How To is releasing bi-weekly bonus episodes exclusively for Slate Plus members. That means more advice, more experts, and more stories to help you tackle life's challenges head-on. Don't miss out. Try Slate Plus for free now on Apple Podcasts or visit slate.com/howtoplus to get access wherever you listen.